Hello everyone. Welcome back to Lady Show English. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Have you ever wondered when you're truly the happiest in your life? Is it when you're young and carefree? Or perhaps when you're older and wiser? Today, we're going to explore a fascinating topic that touches all of our lives: the relationship between age and happiness. This isn't just my opinion, it's backed by scientific research that has studied hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's dive into this intriguing subject together. Let me start by asking you a question. If you're watching this and you're over 50, think back to when you felt the happiest. Was it in your 20s? Many of you might be nodding your heads right now, and you're not alone. When researchers spoke to seniors at a community club in London, almost everyone said the same thing. They believed their happiest days were in their late teens and early 20s. One gentleman named James, who was the chair of the senior club, laughed and said he was a real party animal back then. He told researchers that he didn't have any real responsibilities until he was about 40 years old. Those early adult years, he recalled, were filled with freedom, excitement, and endless possibilities. But here's where things get really interesting. While these seniors believed they were happiest in their youth, scientists have discovered something quite different about happiness throughout our lives. And this discovery has shocked researchers around the world. Before we get to that, though, let me explain how scientists even study something as personal and subjective as happiness. You might be thinking, how can you measure happiness? It seems so personal, so individual. Well, since the 1990s, researchers have been collecting data through detailed questionnaires. They've asked hundreds of thousands of people across the globe about their life satisfaction and well-being. And surprisingly, when you gather enough data, clear patterns emerge. For example, we now know that people in Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Sweden consistently report higher happiness levels. We also know that unemployment deeply affects happiness, regardless of how much money someone has in the bank. But the most remarkable discovery came from two economists, Professor Andrew Oswald and David Blanchflower. They were initially studying how wages affect happiness. However, as they analyzed their data from 500,000 people across the United States and Western Europe, they noticed something unexpected. Age seemed to have a much stronger relationship with happiness than they had anticipated. What they found was so consistent, so clear, that they had to investigate further. They expanded their research to Asia, South America, and Eastern Europe. Then they looked at data from 72 different countries, including both developed and developing nations. And in every single place, across different cultures, climates, and economic conditions, they found the same pattern. Happiness follows what scientists call a U-shaped curve. Let me explain what this means for you and me. According to this research, we are indeed quite happy in our 20s, just as those seniors remembered. But then something happens. Our happiness begins to decline as we move through our 30s and into our 40s. This isn't a gentle slope, it's a noticeable drop. The lowest point, the bottom of the U, happens in our late 40s. For many people, this is around 47 to 49 years old. This is, statistically speaking, the unhappiest time in most people's lives. But here's the good news, and it really is good news. After we hit that low point in our late 40s, our happiness starts to climb back up. It rises through our 50s and 60s, and for many people, their 70s can be just as happy, if not happier, than their 20s. This U-shaped happiness curve is one of the most robust findings in all of social science. It holds true whether you're male or female, regardless of your race or ethnicity, And it doesn't matter if you live in a hot climate or a cold one. It even appears in countries with very different economic situations. Researchers have tested this pattern in so many different ways, and it keeps showing up. It's remarkably consistent. Now, you might be wondering about the obvious explanation, the midlife crisis. We've all heard about midlife crises, haven't we? It's become almost a cliché in modern culture. The stereotype is of someone in their 40s buying a sports car or making dramatic life changes. And there's actually some truth to this idea. Professor Oswald suggests that midlife is when many people realize they might not achieve all the dreams they had when they were younger. When you're 20, the world seems full of infinite possibilities. You might dream of becoming a CEO, a famous artist, or changing the world in some way. But by your mid-40s, reality has usually set in. You can see more clearly where your life is headed, and sometimes that's disappointing. As Oswald puts it, not living up to your youthful aspirations is psychologically painful. There are also practical stressors that pile up during midlife. This is often when your children are teenagers or leaving home, which can be emotionally challenging. Your career might be at its most demanding point. You might be dealing with aging parents who need care. Divorce rates peak during this period. Financial pressures can be intense as you're trying to save for retirement while possibly still supporting your children. All of these factors contribute to that dip in happiness. But here's where the story takes a truly fascinating turn. Professor Oswald wanted to test whether these social and cultural factors were really the main cause of the midlife happiness dip. So he did something quite unusual. He decided to study our closest genetic relatives, great apes. Yes, you heard that right. Orangutans and chimpanzees. Now, why would studying orangutans tell us anything about human happiness? Well, these primates are remarkably intelligent and emotionally complex. They experience a full range of emotions: joy, sadness, frustration, affection. They can be curious and playful, but they can also have tantrums. In many ways, their emotional lives mirror our own. But here's the key point: orangutans don't have mortgages. They don't worry about their careers or their children's college fees. They don't experience divorce or deal with aging parents. In other words, they don't have all those midlife stressors that we humans face. Dr. Alex Weiss from the University of Edinburgh had collected happiness data on more than 500 chimpanzees and orangutans. Zookeepers and researchers who knew these primates well had filled out detailed questionnaires about each animal's well-being and emotional state over many years. When Professor Oswald analyzed this primate happiness data, he was amazed by what he found. The orangutans and chimpanzees showed exactly the same U-shaped happiness curve as humans. Young primates in their equivalent of their 20s were quite happy. Middle-aged primates showed lower well-being scores. And older primates became happier again. Even orangutans, it seems, have a midlife crisis. Understanding this pattern can also help us prepare. If we know that midlife can be challenging, we can be more intentional about taking care of our mental health during those years. We can be more forgiving of ourselves when we feel dissatisfied or restless. And we can look forward to the upward curve that research tells us is coming. There's something comforting about knowing that happiness in later life isn't just possible, it's probable. The research suggests that our 70s can be a wonderful time, potentially as happy as our carefree 20s, but with the added benefits of wisdom, experience, and perspective. That's something to look forward to, isn't it? Now that we've explored this fascinating topic, let's take a closer look at some of the key vocabulary and language structures we've used. This will help you not only understand this topic better but also use these expressions in your own English conversations. Let's start with some essential vocabulary. The word happiness is central to our discussion today. It's a noun that describes a state of contentment and joy. We can also use related words like happy, which is an adjective, and happily, which is an adverb. For example, she lives happily in the countryside. Another important word is well-being. This noun refers to a person's overall health and happiness. It's often used in more formal or academic contexts. You might hear someone say, yoga improves both physical and mental well-being. The term midlife crisis is a compound noun we use to describe a period of emotional turmoil and self-doubt that some people experience in middle age. In sentences, we might say, he bought a motorcycle during his midlife crisis. Let's talk about the word nadir. This is a more advanced vocabulary item. It means the lowest point or the worst moment. In our article, we used it to describe the lowest point of happiness, which occurs in the late 40s. You could also say, the company reached its nadir during the economic recession. The phrase holds true is very useful. It means that something remains valid or accurate in different situations. For example, this advice holds true regardless of your age. Now, let's look at some important phrases and collocations. A U-shaped curve is a pattern that goes down and then up again, like the letter U. We use this to describe how happiness changes over a lifetime. In other contexts, you might talk about a learning curve or a growth curve. The expression backed by research means supported by scientific studies. When you want to make your argument more credible, you can say, this claim is backed by extensive research. To hold true means to remain accurate or valid. For instance, these principles hold true in most situations. When we say something happens regardless of, we mean it occurs without being affected by something else. For example, she was determined to succeed regardless of the obstacles. The phrase touches all of our lives means it affects everyone. You might say, climate change is an issue that touches all of our lives. Let's examine some grammatical structures we've used. We frequently use the present perfect tense, such as have discovered and have studied. We use this tense to connect the past with the present. For example, scientists have found evidence of climate change suggests that the discovery happened in the past but is still relevant now. We also used many comparative and superlative forms. Happiest, happier, and the most robust are examples. Remember, for short adjectives, we add or est, like happier and happiest. For longer adjectives, we use more or most, like more interesting or the most fascinating. Passive voice appeared several times in our discussion, such as it's backed by scientific research and happiness has been measured. We use passive voice when the action is more important than who performs it, or when the doer is unknown or obvious from context. We used several conditional sentences, like if you're in your 40s, you might feel this way. These if clauses help us talk about possibilities and conditions. Relative clauses were common too, such as seniors who were interviewed or research that shows. These clauses give us extra information about nouns. Well, that brings us to the end of today's lesson. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the fascinating relationship between age and happiness, and I hope you've picked up some useful vocabulary and grammar along the way. Remember, here at Ladies Show English, we focus on bringing you current and practical English lessons through topics that matter: health, food, travel, business, technology, and environmental news. Our goal is to help you improve your English while staying informed about the world around you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future lessons. Your support really helps us create more content for you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Are you in your 20s, 40s, or perhaps your 60s? Does this happiness curve match your experience? Share your thoughts below. I read all the comments and I love hearing from you. Thank you so much for learning with me today. Keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay happy.